Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jared Cast.
So it begins.
Hello. Welcome back to the Jared Cast. Grab your boats, grab your spears, grow your beards. It's time to talk Vikings. I'm one of your hosts. Thank you for the pity cheer. I am one of your hosts, Jared L. With me, as always, doesn't really change. Sometimes additions, but never subtractions. It's Jared A. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Had a lot of weird stuff happen this week. Dropped off a family member at the airport, but I also got these like really awesome like exclusive comics. This one's by Jen Bartel, one of my favorites. It's of Silk. She's like an Asian American Spider Woman. And then I won't show you the Black Cat one, but there's this one of
too inappropriate.
No, it's fine. But there's this one of Venom dunking on Spider-Man for the 200th issue of Venom.
That's awesome.
Just cause.
Yeah. Why not? No.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a sleepy boy. I'm entering my last week of having to wake up at 2 a.m. Because after this week I will be unemployed. So I'm excited about that, as weird as that sounds. I got a new tat. I got inked the fuck up on 420 for the visual audience.
It's a good choice.
So I'm real hyped with how it turned out. Not bad for just walking into what happened to be the only good tattoo shop in Medford, apparently. He spent like the whole hour that we were in there talking shit about the other ones. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk some Robert Eggers. He's near and dear to this podcast. We've talked about The Witch a few times, but I don't think we've reviewed any of his movies officially, unless it's blank.
Yeah,
we did.
Period piece horror.
Never mind. Yeah, duh. Not even long ago. The second I said it, I regretted it. But we're returning with brand new release, hot off the presses, The Northman. Very excited to get into that. But before we do, ... segue.
We got a top 5, and very, very topical top 5, because we're talking about our top 5 favorite beards from movies and TV. I don't know if you did TV. I did not.
I didn't, actually.
Cool. Yeah. Basically, I just I tried for my list to come up with a different beard for every item. But it's a big part of I guess Viking lore, and a big part of the design of every character in the Northman. So I think this was really a fun list to do, but very, very difficult to narrow down because there are so many great beards. Did you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You can take it away.
Cool. My number 5, I feel like it's a sin, for me at least, to not include Kurt Russell on a list, and so on a list talking about beards. So I chose Kurt Russell's beard, not in the movie that you might be thinking of. It's actually from his beard as Sheriff Franklin Hunt in the film Bone Tomahawk, a kind of crazy Western cannibal horror. With and it's just this massive white bush. He keeps the mustache gray, which is really cool. So it adds like this other like layer of texture to his face. He has I think a dark hat and it just looks perfect in the setting. The desert is very terrifying. It's like this really pale dust, and a lot of the horror happens in broad daylight, and it works. It's so good. Yeah, it's great.
Hell yeah. That's one of the horror movies that I've been meaning to watch for like 10 years and just still haven't. Okay, I wasn't going to watch the cannibal movie when I was fucking 15. Well, maybe, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I need to get on it. We may or may not be hearing from our boy Kurt again later. But not now, because my number 5 goes back to my wee little childhood as Dumbledore, played
Ooh.
by they've been like 3 different Dumbledore actors at this point. So I'm specifically gonna do Michael Gambon's Dumbledore
Ooh.
with the little ponytail midway down.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. I'll say it. Dumbledore's got a better beard than Gandalf, and I think that might be a hot take, but I don't know. Something about it's just magical.
Yeah.
It's got great flow. The simple ponytail breaks it up beautifully and accentuates its length, and I'm a big fan of that one. So shout out Dumbleboy.
Yeah. I would disagree if you were talking about Richard, what's his name? Jefferson? The first one?
Harris.
Richard Harris. Ah, I'm stupid.
Idiot.
But Richard Jefferson's a comic book character. But with the ponytail, I agree. That's better than any of Gandalf's looks.
Yeah.
My number 4, though, is neither a wizard nor a demigod. He's a sailor, and so he has a very sailorish beard. It's brown, but the film is black and white. And he just gets all kinds of stuff in it: food, dirt, sometimes water, sometimes piss. It's crazy. Sometimes a little bit of both. It's Thomas Wake's beard from the Lighthouse. I love Willem Dafoe. I think he's awesome. I love like basically any look that he has, like whether he's just got the mustache like Bobby Peru and Wild at Heart. But the Lighthouse look is especially great because it's so influenced, because the cinematography is so influenced by German Expressionism. So you get to see like all the knots and the different textures in the beard, and so I like that. I like the sailor look for Willem Dafoe in the Lighthouse.
Damn, a fantastic pick. Always nice to see Eggers popping up on the list before we chat about his movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might be hearing from a sailor later. My number 4 is going back to Kurt Russell, but a different Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
It may be the one you're thinking of. It's R.J. McCready in The Thing.
Yes.
I love the long hair, short beard combo. It just frames around perfectly, super tightly trimmed, despite being in middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
He keeps it right, keeps it tight, and I appreciate that. And throw some sunglasses on there, and he's just a badass looking boy. I don't see how it can get better than that clean cut beard of his.
Hell yeah. It's an excellent pick. I thought I was debating between The Thing and Hateful Eight and Bone Tomahawk, and so it was a very close call. It was a very close call.
I love that we both were like obligated to have a Kurt Russell pick on the list.
The man just knows how to wear a beard.
Yeah, he is.
My number 3, this man knows how to wear a beard and flex a beard. It's Gordon Liu playing Pa Mei in Kill Bill Volume 2. It just looks like a flag, like a white flag. And what I love about it is like he flicks his beard a lot, with sass, but he does it in like he has like different kinds of flicks. Like he has a flick of approval, a flick of disappointment, a flick of like goodbye, a flick of hello, and so like every time he flicks his beard, it's something different. I think the performance is great, and I like that the beard is so clean that it actually looks like a banner or a flag on his face. Yeah, Gordon Liu, Kill Bill 2.
Hell yeah. A fantastic pick. We may be hearing from Gordon Liu a little bit later. But for now, it's sailor time, baby. And what better and more iconic sailor beard than just going full fictional with it? Because coming in at number 3, I got Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. The tentacle beard just needed a spot. I have to dock it because it's like not really a beard at all, but or else it might have been number 1. Because I love it, man. The design of this is fantastic. They did an excellent job with it. And big shout out to Bill Nighy for the portrayal.
Yeah, man.
Because it's just iconic, man. I love that beard.
I agree. My number 2, normally a goatee would never make my list.
No.
However, Denzel Washington playing Alonzo Harris in Training Day with the goatee is absolutely iconic. It takes a level of otherworldly, almost alien confidence that this guy has to pull off a goatee in Crenshaw, man. And like maybe it was fashionable at the time. I wasn't. I was still a child when the movie came out. But yeah, man, King Kong ain't got shit on this goatee, man. It's absolutely really cool and kind of gives him this intimidation. Adds an intimidation factor to his character. But when you first meet him, it makes him approachable. And so that transformation, not like he's already transformed by the time you meet him, but the different perspective that the main character has of Alonzo Harris from the beginning to the end of the movie is really, really interesting because the look doesn't change. It's all Denzel's performance and the way he kind of wears his clothes and the way he wears his beard and wears his hair. And so yeah, I love the look for my number 2.
Hell yeah. Nice. We will not be hearing from Denzel later on this list. My number 2, a tricky part about a beard, especially if you don't have hair on the top of your head, is where the fuck do you stop? Where does beard stop and hair start? And I don't think anybody has figured it out quite like this man. It's hard. It's weird picking a movie for it because he kind of just looks the same in every movie, and I pity the fool who doesn't like Mr. T's beard in Rocky 3.
Amazing.
I think he's just lined up to pure excellence on this one.
Yeah.
The obvious beard and mohawk combo is fucking iconic.
Yes.
But for me, it's the weird little like handlebar that's just like perfectly straight that I just love so much, man. It's intimidating, but it looks good, and it doesn't get much better than that. It gets better than that, obviously, because this is my number 2, but it doesn't get much better than that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent number 2. I forgot about Mr. T, man. It's so good.
How could you forget about Mr. T?
Clover, what's your prediction for this fight? Prediction? Pain.
We need to do a Rocky episode. I don't think we've talked about any Rockies.
Just the whole series.
Yeah. Just a quick review and ranking of Rocky 1 through fucking 17 if you count the spin-offs.
Yeah, man. My number 1 is an item we have already seen on this list. It's Davy Jones. I did not dock it for being a squid beard, a tentacle beard. I think that's what makes it great. I remember seeing the trailer for Dead Man's Chest when it came out in theaters. I forget what year, but um, they don't really they don't really show anything in the trailer or the teaser. They just kind of um, move through Davy Jones' boat, and like there's this menacing voice, and then you see him walk down the stairs and kind of limp on his like peg leg, and you don't know who this is, you don't know who this character, and then he just looks at the camera, time's up. And like, and you can see his beard is moving, but you don't know why until you watch the movie. And so yeah, Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. But I chose At World's End because he kills someone with his beard in that movie.
Fair enough.
Absolutely bonkers. Yeah, it's also just one of the best CGI effects of all time. Like it still looks good to this day. Yeah, Bill Nighy, man. Excellent actor, excellent beard.
Yeah, 100% agree. Obviously, it was on my list. My number one was also a repeat offender. We did not do good at not having crossover on this one because it's Pai Mei from Kill Bill 2. I mean, pretty much for all the same reasons. It's the flick that puts this above Mr. T for me.
Yeah.
And it's just so clean and like the definition of like the mustache into the beard, but you can still kind of tell where the mustache is.
Yeah.
Is beautiful. The white texture of it is fantastic. Everything about it is just amazing, cartoony, but in the best way. And I love it a lot. So it's my number one.
Hell yeah. I like that our number ones and number threes that will match.
Yeah. Yeah. Good shit. Good shit.
Alrighty. Shall we talk about some Viking beards?
We should, but we're going to have to wait. Because first, it's time for Jared reads poorly written reviews of movies we're watching because it's funny and it makes him laugh and stuff. This one comes from Chappelle363, and no, I will not be doing an impression. But it's nice that Dave is on IMDb these days. He called this movie horrendous, boring, and nonsensical, and gave it a 1 out of 10. Certainly didn't help that I had somewhat high expectations for this movie, a revenge-fueled adventure saga. But my God, this movie wasn't a complete waste of time. It also left me with a bad taste in my mouth. Main character is bent on revenge and wishes to reclaim his birthright, kingdom. But it turns out how Uncle moves to an island to become a farmer. So 4/5 of this film is set on a fucking farm in the middle of nowhere. Why the fuck would you do that? This is a theatrical release, not a cheap Netflix movie. And then there's tons of inconsistencies with the head-scratching choices made by the protagonist, not acting out his revenge on the uncle immediately, on the first dozen opportune moments he had, miraculously finding a sword in some magical cave, telling his girlfriend to stay before escaping, only to come back the next day trying to save her, him going back after finding out the girlfriend was pregnant, and in the killing of everyone on the farm except his uncle, only to follow him up to a volcano one scene later. Also didn't like the character design of the protagonist. The fuck was that hair? And a 50-year-old Skarsgård playing 20-year-old? I'll say this, though. I enjoyed the acting and fantasy elements. Otherwise, complete waste of time.
Dang, dude.
Yeah. Not a fan.
Not a fan at all. It's interesting, though. Like, just describe the plot.
Like, yeah, most of these reviews just do. He likes the fantastical elements, except when it has anything to do with the plot. Then all prophecies need to go out the window, and all mythology needs to stay the fuck away from me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy indeed. Did you want to start off, or you want me to start off?
You can take it away.
Cool. Yeah, I'm still digesting the Northman. Obviously, I'm a fan of Robert Eggers. We've talked about how The Lighthouse is one of my favorite movies of the previous decade. Talked about The Witch extensively on in a previous episode. So my mind could change about this movie. It's pretty fresh in both of our minds. I saw it Thursday night, uh,
Yeah. I
and
saw it 8 hours ago.
on a technical level, I think it's better than The Witch. I don't think it's as good as The Lighthouse on a technical level. I think I like it less than the other two, if we're comparing just his filmography. But if you're going into this movie expecting something like The Witch and expecting something like The Lighthouse, don't. The Northman is very, very different. It's kind of Robert Eggers stretching his legs, and I like that about this movie. I think that that's an interesting thing. And I think I'm happy for him that as a filmmaker he gets to push himself and really go places that he wouldn't be able to go to with A24. Overall, I thought it was visually captivating and sonically full-bodied. It's one of the best sounding movies I've heard in quite a while. The writing, I think, could have been less spoon-feedy in the third act, but since the vibe was this animalistic, in-your-face, Shakespeare meets Conan type of vibe, like I didn't mind so much. Like and also like I think a couple scenes were too dark. I saw this in Adobe Theater and it was still too dark. Like, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. The performances were solid, especially Skarsgård and the extras. I thought the extras were all fantastic in this movie. And as a fan of Norse mythology, I was pleasantly surprised that I didn't see any trailers, so I didn't know how much of the supernatural would be in this, and so I was pleasantly surprised at that element in the film. Yeah, well, I'll get into my in-depth thoughts later, but overall, I think I'll give this just an even 9. That could go lower, that could go higher with rewatches, but I was just very hyped with it. Like, it was a party for me, being a fan of the God of War video games and the and Conan the Barbarian comics, and all the and the poetic Edda, which inspired a lot of the dialogue in the film.
Yeah. I have pretty similar thoughts about it. I think it excels most in its production design is fantastic, even for a simplistic farm. They do a fantastic job. Every character looks incredible, especially the costuming. They do an amazing job blending the mythology and fantastical elements with like the grounded reality of the story, I guess. I think they bounce between the two seamlessly. There's great use of black and white during some of these moments, especially the nighttime. And I think they just did a great execution blending the two. I do agree. I think the writing kind of drops off in the third act, but the action keeps going at the same caliber in the third act. So I'm not really like fiending for better writing, although it would have been nice. I think my biggest flaw, and probably my only flaw, is it feels like it's just missing something. I feel like there's an hour and a half of this movie that got on the cutting room floor. I want more before he becomes a berserker. Although it is cool to just see an immediate jump in 180 in his personality. I would have liked to see a little bit more of the origin I would have liked to see more of like the hate bubbling in him and conflicting with following his fate or not. And I just wanted a little bit more because it takes off and then the pace is like a fucking bullet train the whole movie.
Yeah.
There's not any real room to breathe. It doesn't give you much to kind of settle in and experience the world. It's just violence and go and revenge, which isn't bad. I was incredibly entertained this whole time, which having seen The Lighthouse and The Witch, I didn't think would happen. I was expecting a slow burn because I went in with expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think it ended up being a fantastic product despite those. Another small flaw I saw was I wanted I can blanking on her name, but Anya Taylor-Joy to do a bit more. They hyped her up as this cunning mastermind, and then she really only flexed her muscles like twice, and in relatively small ways. So I think it would have been nice to see that partnership be more 50-50 as the prophecies in the movie kind of made it seem like it would turn out to be. But all that is to say, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was incredibly entertaining. I thought the action was amazing. The gore effects are phenomenal. Some of the best I've seen in a little bit. And overall, it was a very enjoyable experience. I'll give it a straight 8 out of 10. I do think there's flaws with it. I do think it's his weakest movie that I've seen, but his average is incredibly high. So, like, his weakest movie is better than some people's best movie.
I agree. The character's name was Olga.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Were there any other, I guess, supporting performances that you latched onto besides part of her performance and before we get into Skarsgård's character, because he kind of is the driving force of the movie.
Yeah, honestly, across the board, it was incredibly well acted. I think I'm a big Klaus Bang fan, and so seeing him as fucking I don't know Fjolnir, I don't know how to pronounce it. He did an incredible job. I kind of wanted more screen time from him, honestly. I think seeing some of the downfall of his kingdom would have been cool, or some of his general, like, I want to see him as a leader. Like, what the fuck is he doing on it? But I mean, it's already 2 hours 15, so wanting so much more from this movie, you're gonna have to have a fucking trilogy, which I would not be upset about. But he did fantastic. Ethan Hawke in the first act, or I guess first 10 minutes of the film, was amazing as Amleth's dad, War Raven. Not going to try to pronounce his name. Nicole Kidman did pretty good. I wasn't super blown away by her performance, but I think she definitely held her own within this. And then even down to like Willem Dafoe as a fool, I wanted more because he's always stealing the show when he's on screen. Even Bjork as like the Oracle was fucking fantastic, dude. The costume design for that character was off the charts. I loved it. So honestly, if she made a couple more appearances, I wouldn't have been upset either. So honestly, across the board, I don't have any complaints about anyone's performance. I think they all did incredible.
Yeah, I was really hoping that Bjork would sing, uh, but sadly, that did not happen. Like, she could literally sing like her normal songs, and they would work for this. I am the hunter. Like,
It would have been cool if she did like the soundtrack to it and went like full like Icelandic weirdo side of Bjork. I think that would have been real cool to see. Not that I have a problem with the score. We get a fucking Jew's harp in it and like
Yeah.
banjos and shit. Like, what's not to love there? But
It is a crazy score. I definitely want to hear it again.
yeah,
Yeah, I liked Clay Spang as Fjolnir. I I guess I didn't even realize until like right now that I'm looking at it that he's the guy in the square. I just totally blanked
yeah,
on it. I was like, oh, that's where I've seen him before. Yeah, he was cool. He does get one moment where he talks with his son, and he says like, "Anytime your kingdom can be taken away."
yeah.
And that's kind of where I thought like, okay, they're trying to make his character more interesting. I appreciate that. Um, I
Quick tangent. I thought for sure it was Luke Wilson at first when he first came on screen. I was like, weird choice, but okay.
Yeah, man. Oh man, that'd be great. The Northman, directed by Wes Anderson.
Honestly, the framing wouldn't change. That opening shot where it like pans to the island, literally like
Yeah.
was Wes Anderson.
Yeah, yeah. We could talk about cinematography too, because I got some thoughts. But uh, yeah, I also liked Willem Dafoe and Bjork. I wanted like 10 more minutes of both of them. I think honestly this movie could benefit from more length. If it was 2 hours and 40, I probably would have gotten a higher score for me. Because Ethan Hawke's character, the king, like feels kind of like a stranger to us, and that's kind of necessary for the big twist at the near the end when the queen reveals that he was her abuser, and forced her to have a child. Yeah, that one was kind of. I feel like if I had spent more time with him and like grown to love him more, I feel like that would have cut deeper. I do like Nicole Kidman's in this movie a lot. Did you ever see Big Little Lies?
No.
So her and Alexander play husband and wife in that one, and and it's like a very very like she's it is like okay she's with a younger man, like that's part of the story, but he's like real abusive, and it's like absolutely terrifying. And so it was interesting kind of seeing them play out this really really bizarre relationship on screen, where they this perfect mixture of love and hate, and even just the one confrontation is super animalistic like the rest of the movie, but also very yeah, it's like two lions circling each other. Is really interesting and cool. But I mentioned also the extras. I think they killed it with the choreography.
Yeah.
Especially in the first invasion, the they go for like a really long take in that first berserker attack, and it works really well, I think, in my opinion. Like you get to see everyone use their physicality and their and just the like I don't care if I'm going to get cut, like that kind of thing where it does feel like a wolf attack. It does feel like a monster invasion of someone's life, and it's terrifying. It's disturbing, and you're kind of watching Alexander Skarsgård playing Amleth, being both an observer and a participant, and it immerses you in a weird and interesting way. And because with the Lighthouse and with the Witch, we're kind of looking at Thomason and Thomas objectively. We're looking at them kind of go through what they're going through from a distance, and not so with this movie. With this movie, we're right there with Amleth, and so I like the weird contradiction between observer and participant in the character. I think that's kind of one of the things that I appreciated about the movie most, and I appreciated about Skarsgård's performance.
Yeah, yeah. The physicality of his performance the entire time is incredible. He's always like hunched over and like walking arms out and shit.
Yeah,
It's intimidating, man. And even when he's like being sneaky, his kind of like cat like movements are also real cool to see. So it's a great physical performance. And I think that ties in super well to the fight choreography. Most fights aren't really long-winded. Even the final battle is like a few minutes. It goes by pretty quick. But the choreography in it is fantastic. Every kill is so ruthless in this movie, and most times nonchalant, which makes it even worse. When I was watching it, there was like a whole row of like 11-year-olds next to me, and I was like,
oh my
this
god,
is rough for y'all."
yeah,
Um, but it was fantastic. The physicality of this movie is off the charts for sure.
yeah. How did you feel about the violent content overall? Was it like too brutal? Was it not brutal enough?
I think it was right in the sweet spot, honestly, because for a movie about like Vikings and Norse mythology, it's gonna get brutal. Like that's just a fact. It's a brutal society with a brutal reputation. Like
Yeah,
I kind of expected that. And so I think it was right the right amount. I don't think it was too gratuitous or pandery at any moment. I think every kill was pretty much earned across the board. Um, and so the gore factor, I think it looked good enough that with the quantity and quality of the kills, it just matched perfectly. So I don't think it was like too gratuitous. Anytime there was a blood splatter, I was hyped and cheering instead of like, I mean, there were a couple that I winced for sure, but overall, I think they balanced it super well. The kill count is incredibly high in this movie. The kills per minute is probably like almost two, which is crazy. Um, but I think they pulled it off. I think it's hard to have this many kills and this violent of kills, but I think that they did a good job balancing it all.
yeah. I mostly agree. I feel like the like as much as I like the cinematography and I like how smooth the Steadicam movements are, it feels like almost like he does even give a special thanks to Alfonso Cuarón at the end, in the credits. I feel like the kind of Cuarón approach though, like it was too smooth sometimes. Like
Mm,
I like a little. I don't like shaky cam obviously. Like I shit on every movie that does it
yeah.
and that tries to cover up the choreography with it. But there are moments where someone's getting cut or someone's getting stabbed, where like the camera is static and it doesn't really it doesn't help the visceral nature of the kill. It
Yeah.
doesn't like I like there are sometimes it's weird, it's inconsistent. Like there are some times where it works, right? In the first in the sacking of the village in the first raid, someone starts by throwing a spear at Hamlet. He catches it in midair, chucks it right back, and kills the guy in the same shot.
Mm,
And it's awesome. It's amazing. It looks beautiful. But there are some moments where but then there's another moment where the near the end where he puts a sword through a guy's like nose
yeah.
and uh like it makes me wince. It's cool, but like I wish I could see the guy's face. I wish I could see the up close of that effect. Um, I wish I could see like when he gets hit by the under what's it called, the cave dweller thing, the undead
Mm,
the undead thing. I wish I could see him like react to the hits, and really
Yeah.
feel it in his face. Um, and yeah, so the cinematography was like I feel conflicted about it because of that.
Yeah.
And obviously he does lean on that Corone influence like a lot. He also leans on his Bergman influence like usual. There are a lot of moments where the characters are looking directly at the camera, um,
Mhm.
because we are in Amleth's mind, and that's kind of how he sees every character. Um, but the close-ups are still beautifully done, and I didn't mind that he leaned on those influences still. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of disagree on the Steadicam because most of the time there are moments where I kind of wanted it to be a little more rough and ready, but I think it highlights the effortlessness in which he kills
mm,
um, heavily, and I think that that's important for the character because everything was taken because of violence, and so turning to a life of senseless violence because now you're this cold-blooded like shell of the boy you used to be. I think it highlights that super well. And even the nose one, I think just the cleanness of it is kind of satisfying for me. I do think when he's struggling a bit more, like in that undead fight or the final face-off, I think we could have used something a little more rough around the edges for sure. But when he's like cleanly just slicing through motherfuckers without any problem. I liked that the cinematography reflected that effortlessness.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and I felt that in the Berserker fight, but I
Yeah,
just felt it was inconsistent.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
um, yeah. So the main character, we've talked a lot about his performance, but it's also not necessarily inspired by Hamlet, but inspired by the story
The
that
thing that
inspired. Yeah,
inspired.
that inspired Hamlet. But we've kind of in Western culture been very much like had that story hammered in, and so how did you feel about the kind of similarities and the differences and um, the I guess parallels between uh, the the Shakespeare play, and how
Yeah,
did you feel about it? Did you
I
enjoy it?
like I like that they didn't really lean into it much at all. Like it is very like Shakespearean in its like dialogue and its kind of poetic nature, and its themes of like tragedy and revenge and family. But the plot itself is pretty far removed. It's not. It feels like they took inspiration from the original source material instead of letting depictions of Hamlet kind of influence it. And I really appreciated that. I think it worked in their favor and it kept more true to the Norse origins, the Norigins, if you will. Um, it stayed more true to that, and I think I paid off in their favor. Um, it would have been cool to see a few more nods, and I'm not a Hamlet pro. I've never seen the play. I've seen a shitty movie based on it, and I've read the play, but that was a long time ago, and so I barely remember a lot of the details of it. Besides, like the general knowledge that everyone kind of knows, and so I appreciated that they didn't rely on that as a source, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it. Um, I agree. I agree, and I feel like the dialogue is less Shakespearean and more Conan actually,
Yeah.
because there are moments where I feel like they're trying to be badass with the dialogue, and I like that. Like I like that it's pulpy. I like that
Hmm.
this movie isn't you know very niche art house the way that the Lighthouse
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and that's kind of what threw me off at first. It took me like a little bit. I think after the Berserker fight, I was like, okay, I get kind of the stylistic part of this.
Yeah,
But it took me a bit to settle in because I had such expectations before.
yeah. And that also like it helps me enjoy the plot, even though the plot is very basic, and the plot is like there are some you can make great cinema with a basic revenge plot like Mandy,
Hmm.
and you can or even Kill Bill, but uh, the the they always walked like this really careful line between being like too basic and being like, okay, this is actually pretty cool for me. Like sometimes they tip over in one part or another.
Hmm.
Like I'm like, okay, where's this prophecy going to take him next? All right, let's keep going. That's that kind of thing where it was like, uh, it was kind of conflicted between him being like passive and active as a protagonist. Um, but I also just thought it was cool. Like they like the thing with the teardrop being passed from seer to seer. The thing with the from the fool to the seer. Um, some of the dialogue with between him and Olga was cool. And like sometimes I wish that Shakespeare performers would take it to this level of theatricality and this kind
Yeah.
of operatic level. Um, and they do especially on stage. But in the movies, it's always very subdued and very like
Hmm.
kind of like period drama. And I like that here. Like at one point, like Anya Taylor Joy's voice is cracking because she's just screaming into the wind, or screaming with the wind while the wind propels her towards her destiny. Um, and yeah, and yeah, that's another big theme is destiny, and I think that contributes to the movement of the plot and the way
Hmm.
everything kind of propels forward without ever stopping. Because it's like, oh, destiny, 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 and I felt conflicted about that at first because I was like, okay, like that's kind of a cop out, but like thinking about these people and this culture and like the wear and tear of the day to day, like dealing with the threat of you know crazy people, crazy Britons, crazy berserkers, crazy everything, and then dealing with the harsh elements of the Nordic weather, dealing with a volcano in your backyard, like like you kind of have to hold on to this idea that there is something that you're destined for something greater. And so
Hmm.
I forgave that part of it for sure because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think tying it so hard into mythology, like we get straight up Valkyrie, we get oracles, like we get a lot of this like fantastical mythology background, and I think that relieves some of the cop out nature of Destiny, is because they lean into it so hard. There were a couple like themes that I think could have been executed a little better. At times, I felt like some of the substance was lacking a tad, um, mostly in like conflict about like family, because they make such a big deal of it in the beginning, and
Yeah.
then every single person abandons it entirely, and nobody gives a fuck by the end. And so it's tough, kind of seeing that change without having a lot of nuance or like kind of a gradual change with it. It's like almost immediate. And I touched on another side of that too earlier, with like feeling internal conflict about violence. Like the character who had everything taken from him because of violence, a character who had um, it felt like almost swore to only get revenge on the people who wronged him, goes and creates the same predicament he grew up in to 500 people and within like 10 minutes of the film. And so I just needed a little more of a gradual change and a gradual like conflict within the character of like what I'm doing is wrong, but like it will ultimately lead me to this final destiny. And I think they could have tied in some more nuance with that, because it feels like they didn't quite hit plot, or not plot points, but like emotional beats as much as they kind of wanted to.
Yeah, I felt that too in the conflict between Fjolnir and Amleth, because the movie does introduce this little complexity. Like Fjolnir's actually not that bad of a dude.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, he is, but
Yeah, he's a shithead, but also like he's a good dad and he's like a decent leader.
yeah, and he his father that is fighting so hard to avenge, the king,
Mhm.
was worse and
Yeah,
you know, raped his slaves. Um, but on the other hand, they also have this contradiction where Fjolnir tries to rape Olga.
yeah,
Fjolnir keeps slaves and kills them, freely, or kills them on a whim. And
yeah, for fuck literal sport.
yeah, and so there's this. You I wish they gave him and Amleth a like a more thorough like relationship, and I think
Yeah,
that would have made the conflict much higher and much more satisfying in the end,
mm,
when they face in the volcano.
yeah,
Like give them a moment together where they're chopping wood, or
yeah.
where they're fishing, something like that.
They even like hand serve the perfect moment to have that dialogue after he kills Fjolnir's wife and son. Like they're very amicable about like, okay, we'll face off at the gates of hell at this time. Um, just have a conversation. Be like, look, you fucking wronged me, and like you wronged me, and like they both seemed open to talking it out. Not like resolving it by talking it out, but like stating their case and their claim to each other's lives. But they didn't. They're just like, all right, I guess I'll meet you at the volcano then. Like, yeah, dude, I'll see you there. Um, and so that would have been like the perfect like confrontation, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, how'd you feel about the special effects in the movie?
I think it was good.
Yeah.
I think from the gore, which I complimented pretty heavily in my opening statements, to like the psychedelic drug trips. I do like that shrooms were such a heavy thing in this movie, because it was like berserkers were the way that they are because they ate a shit ton of shrooms before they went to battle.
Yeah.
Like it was a heavy thing, and so I liked that they had both the like religious kind of tribal animalistic uh spiritual side of it, and then also like the violence that it causes. I think they balance that well, and with some of the special effects they could play a little more freely with that. The scene that jumps into my mind is Willem Dafoe and the wolf cub and his dad in the cave. I think they hit that pretty good, but none of it's ever too in your face about being special effects or CG. The hardest they go is the Valkyries riding into Valhalla. Um, I think that's the most gratuitous they get with like obvious special effects, but even then it's gorgeous looking. Like it's beautiful. Like I think they executed it pretty well across the board.
Yeah, I love the Valkyrie thing as well. The CGI I didn't like was when they showed Yggdrasil and the tree, and like all the
Yeah.
family members in the tree,
Yeah, I was not here for that.
as the like even if the CGI was better, I didn't like the color of it. Like it was just
Mhm.
kind of blue and gross.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I agree with the violence. Like it's actually like really, really clever a lot of the times where they use the CGI and where they use the practicals. Um, you know, and seeing heads fly off, like yeah, that's what I've been enjoying beheadings since Lord of the Rings, and
Yeah.
I did not movie did not disappoint as far as the beheadings go. I
Mhm.
um I also like the that it kind of yeah, when there's that mini serial killer arc where the main character becomes a serial killer, and like
Yeah.
like the some of the things that they come up with, I'm like, all right, that's that's pretty.
Yeah. The first like big tableau where they make like the wolf or whatever it was out of bodies. I was like, that's some Night King shit right there.
Yeah, it was gnarly. I want to see like a behind the scenes thing so that I can see what it like looks like without them
Yeah.
like panning away from it. But I also like I wanted to, or I love seeing the two, like, I guess I don't know what they are, priests or priestess, and the priestess,
Mhm.
when they're like she ties her up on the altar with some other guy's intestines.
Yeah.
I love that shit. That was great.
Yeah. Fucking brutal.
It's absolutely insane. And very satisfying because of how much of violence they've wrought upon these slaves,
Hmm.
and you like I like that you kind of see like a hint at Amleth's disapproval with the way his world is and the way people are treated. Um, you can see that he is pretty disgusted at the way that a lot of the slaves are treated in their first village, and then you also see. Even though he's ignorant of it as a child, as an adult, when he's a participant in it, it's all of a sudden much worse and much more traumatizing because it reminds him of his father's death and seeing everything happen to his village,
Hmm.
um, to his own hometown. I mean, or his kingdom. Um, and so the decision to free the slaves doesn't feel far fetched. Like it feels like, okay, yeah, this guy is built different as a Viking.
Hmm.
Like he, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Favorite scenes?
yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Um, I mean, the Berserker invasion, I think, is just the best scene. I think, hands down, bar none. I loved it. Just from the second he catches the spear, you're like, okay, this is gonna be fantastic. So I liked that a lot. The cave scene with his father that I mentioned earlier, where they do shroom stew and Willem Dafoe screams at him. I loved that too. The Oracle Bjork, I think, was a standout aside that kicked off his journey super well. Um, the final battle, I whispered a Star Wars reference into my girlfriend's ear that she did not get or care for, but I had to let it out because he let Anakin get the high ground. You can't do that shit. Um, and I think lastly, honestly, like the serial killer arc and the whole anytime the Nightblade was feeding, I was into it, man. From the original battle underground with the undead to stabbing it through the guy's nose hole, I was on board with the Nightblade the entire time. And the best joke comes out of it when the dude can't open it and he just fucking tosses it and storms off. But those are probably my favorites.
I slightly disagree. My favorite joke in the movie was when he first receives the Nightblade. He cuts off the undead warrior's head and then puts the undead warrior's head in its asshole.
Oh yeah, yeah, I forgot about that.
I was the only one that laughed in the theater. I was like, "Why is
Really?
nobody?" Yeah,
Our theater roared. It was crazy. I
that's
think
true.
I was just distracted by that one because they have like growling like he's gonna fight a bear or something. And so I was like getting hyped for that immediately after, and then it's just nothing.
That's one of my favorite fights. But I don't know if it's one of my favorite scenes. Maybe just the scene of him of him getting the sword and putting it in the guy's ass. That's great. I like the I like speaking to what's his name, Willem Dafoe's character, Heimer. Yeah, Heimer the Fool. Seeing his disembodied head, kind of preserved, and like the other seer talking through him. I thought that was
Skarsgård.
the other. Yeah, I thought that was great. I didn't like the final fight as much as the others. I agree that the first Berserker fight was great, and I also like the scene around the campfire when they're building themselves up and kind of hyping themselves up to go into battle. I thought that was great. One of my favorite shots in the movie is like after the time jump, and you see like the Steadicam's on the riverbed, and you see a rowboat coming, and it goes like the Steadicam goes onto the rowboat and then turns and then goes closer to him. I was like, oh my god, what if they missed? Yeah, I thought that was great. There was the I also loved the scene with Amleth and his father, child Amleth. The kid Amleth was great in the movie. I liked him a lot. I wish I could get more of him. I wish I could get more of a lot of the supporting characters in the movie. But Olga also had a highlight for me when she's screaming on the boat. I thought that was great. Great little monologue that Anya gets to play around with. Bjork, I was very, very happy, even though I wanted more. I was very happy with her scene. My favorite scene overall, though, when Odin rescues him, and because they very because I wasn't sure if it was a raven or a crow at first, but like he does have like encounters with ravens throughout the movie, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like if this is a raven, like that's obviously a symbol for Odin. Like that's cool that he still believes in Odin after losing his kingdom and his altar. But seeing the actual payoff of like Odin's ravens biting him free, and then Odin himself showing up to fulfill his destiny, I thought that was dope. Like it was like perfect crossover between the supernatural and the kind of historical thing of Viking lore, and kind of matches Odin as a character subtly, because Odin is very crafty. He's very he's not very confrontational a lot, and so he likes to be sneaky and help out where he needs to help out and stuff like that. So I thought that was a cool thing, a cool intersection of Norse mythology and Norse history.
Yeah, and even like the nod to his dad having the nickname War Raven and having it be ravens, it combines his father and Odin super well.
Yeah, and right before that too, there's this amazing blood-soaked close-up of his face, where his beard and his hair are like covered in saliva and sweat and blood. And I think that might be my favorite close-up in the movie, where he's like tied up like that. He's got his head down. Yeah. It looks so comic book. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, great movie. Check it out in theaters. I don't think it's on HBO Max or any streaming services yet.
No.
If you haven't watched it and you listen to this whole thing, shame on you. You fucked up. Don't do that. I'm happy you listened, but it's a dumb move. Watch the damn movie, because it's definitely worth it. Anything else you want to say to the people? Plug our socials or whatever.
Yeah, follow us at the Jared Cast. We're going to be reviewing next week a movie that came out this week as well, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I'm stoked to see. I have not seen it
Very
yet.
hyped.
I might see it today. I might see it Tuesday. I don't know. But yeah, thank you for listening. Yeah, The Northman, Robert Eggers, forever.
The second you say the Northman, I knew exactly where you're going. The tone and the voice. Anyways, get out of here.
We love you. Goodbye.